Hello there, and welcome back to part 2 of my 3-part video doing a little shelfie tour of my collection as thanks to everyone who brought my silly little channel above 300 subs and hopefully attaining more as we go through this. And, as said in previous comments, who the hell doesn't like shelfie porn? So, here we go. This shelf is a little bit smaller. It's more compact. This is kind of a shorter shelf that I use for the expanding collection that I had outside of the utility shelf. So rather than do the other side, because I don't have as much time today to do this, I went with the middle shelf. That's kind of catty corner next to it. As you can see in the background, the back end of the utility shelf has, the ever famous Dungeons and Dragons Rule Cyclopedia, but that will be my third entry into the video. So without further ado, let us begin. As we can see, this particular shelf is going to be a lot more eclectic. There's going to be more individual role-playing games and whatnot as we kind of go through a lot of things as my, taste of change, opportunities arose to pick up collector's items for ridiculous deals and discounts, and also quite a few Kickstarters that are within these shelves. So first off, we have Torchbearer 2nd Edition. This was kickstarted some time ago. As you can tell, this is the slipcase set. I did an individual video on this if you'd like to see it in more detail. But it is an absolute beautiful, stunning work of art as far as I'm concerned. I've gone through the book a bit. I haven't had a moment to read it. As you can tell, it is very, very dense with quite a bit to get through. And I do know that some people's feelings about Torchbearer kind of run the extremes. A lot of people absolutely love it. Others really can't deal with it. It does utilize the Burning Wheel rule set, which kind of is the same way for some people. Some people, when they read Burning Wheel, it absolutely connects with them. Others, they get lost within it and just move on to something else. So this is not bearing any judgment upon this. This is something that, when I get some time, I will go through in detail. Hopefully we'll be able to run it or have someone run it for me. Next to this is a wonderful Christmas present that was provided, well, not provided, that was gifted to me. Whoops, we'll put that right side up. That was gifted to me by Pookie from Reviews Relay. And what can I say? This is a limited edition book. This is 184. I think only 200 were printed for this edition. But it is a definite upgrade as far as, artwork and the rule set within the original Warlock. But this is a treasure of mine that I am absolutely grateful that Pookie was able to to gift this to me for my birthday. So we'll slide that back in here. Okay. Next to that, we have the Fate core system and the Dresden Files Accelerated, which utilizes Fate. What can I say about that? I picked these up. I picked up the Fate core system after watching one of either the Red Dice Diaries YouTube video or listening to one of his explanations of it on his podcast. Never done anything with it. Several friends have run this. Several friends love it. Several friends can talk well into the hours about Fate and everything. I have yet to experience it. I did pick up the Dresden Files Accelerated book. This was one of those that has become relatively rare. A local game store of mine had it on sale for half off. Grabbed it. I'm a big fan of the Dresden File books. Have not read it yet. So not much to say about it, but it is in my collection, staring me down and giving me crap every time I pass by it, seeking attention. So we'll kind of slide over a little bit here. And so next to this, we have the Dee Sanction by Paul Bodowski. This is a book that takes place in John Dee's England. You are kind of the that time period version of the Delta Green, so to speak. I know I'm kind of not doing it total justice, but it is a wonderful rules-like game to play within that time period if you're looking for some alternative to your supernatural not necessarily modern, setting and whatnot, but it is a wonderful game and easy to pick up and play. And then next to that, we have there's some additional adventures. This also was a gift from Pookie. This is a Christmas gift that Pookie picked up at Grogmeat, I think. Anywho, it does include a lot of, there's some additional adventures and materials inside of there. When Paul goes to a con, he does put these inside these wonderful little plastic containers for you to keep everything together. And it is a wonderful addition to my small but growing Dee Sanction collection. Get back in there, goddammit. All right. And then next to this, we have, that's already in there, this is a Book of Days. This is a supplement in addition to the Dee Sanction game. And this little thing, this begins my infatuation with Glenn Seal and everything that he does. All the wonderful things that he produces. He is a goddamn workhorse. I don't know when he sleeps, but what he produces is just ridiculous and it's never ending. And the only one I can compare him to off the top of my head would be Diogo Nogueira. Those two just produce, and it's quality stuff. It is a never-ending supply of quality materials, not just for the Midderlands itself, but for any game. Most of Glenn's stuff can be utilized in any fantasy setting, but this little case here is the Bats of St. Albans. This was a Kickstarter from some time ago, and inside there is everything you need to run this particular adventure, which is based within the Midderlands. And we'll slip that back in there. And then continuing on, we have Folk Magic of the Haver Isles, the Midderlands Core, the Midderlands Expanded, the City of Great London, and then all of the Midderzines right here, which further expands the Midderlands. Then we continue on with the rancid canyons of the Floating Death Sheep, and this continues with Glenn's Handy Maps, which is a group of internal maps and external views of a variety of different buildings to further expand not just the Midderlands, but it's to be utilized in any fantasy role-playing game. The wonderful thing about a lot of Glenn's stuff is it can be picked apart and reassembled in any role-playing game that you have. And kind of moving over here a little bit more. Next to this, we have more Midderzines, and as you can see, and some maps. So as you can see, Glenn, prolific. Just a huge amount of stuff. Primarily, as far as I know, done strictly solo. So, this is just amazing. And looking forward to more from Glenn. Coming up here, we have the Kickstarter edition of The Hero's Journey by James M. Spahn. It's a take of, oh geez, what version? I don't think it's old school D&D. It may be BX. Anyways, it's a breakdown, a reassembly of the rules, but utilizing the more of the adventurous aspect, the travel and exploration aspect that sometimes can be ignored in some of the older editions that strictly focus upon dungeon crawling. I've read it a bit, and I know once again a lot of people love it, but you don't see it as much in play. Next to that, we have Four Against the Darkness. This was something that I picked up. It's a solitaire dungeon delving game. It's great. It's designed for a single player, but I have run it for my son as a kind of duet experience, focusing upon dungeon exploration and mapping. A lot of the old school techniques of mapping on a hex grid are forgotten, and this kind of brings it back. This is an older Kickstarter. This is by Baz Stevens from the Smart Party podcast, and this is King of Dungeons. This is another wonderful game that utilizes the 13th Age rule set, or a version of it, I should say. And it's kind of a competitive dungeon crawl where you play a group of dungeoneers whose goal is to make your way through whatever dungeon that you may come across, come back with all of your loot and experience, but you're competing with other Dungeoneers for the crown of King of Dungeons. Let's see, next to this, Matrons of Mystery. So I'm going to take a little moment of this because Sue Savage, who wrote this, is a friend, and I absolutely love this game. I ran this at the most recent Strategicon in Los Angeles, and for all Americans who had no idea what this game was about, but they all signed up. It was a full table and had an absolute blast. For those of you who are familiar with Brindlewood Bay, it's a derivative of that game. It is, powered by the apocalypse, but rather than a bunch of New Englander matrons who are trying to solve the mysteries of Cthulhu mythos and other odd happenings around the East Coast, this one focuses strictly more on the traditional murder aspect of like Murder, She Wrote, as you play a bunch of retired matrons in England who's predominantly just focusing on their retirement years, their golden years, and but these mysteries and murders occur as they do, and their job is to solve these, and usually with a hot cup of tea in hand. If things get a little rough, they can have a little sit and a cuppa and get back to solving the mysteries after they refresh themselves. Sliding that back in. Next to this, we have Scott Malthouse's Romance of the Perilous Land. This is kind of a conglomerate of British fantasy folklore. This kind of combines Robin Hood and King Arthur and a lot of the romance folklore of the British Isles into a singular setting. It is an excellent book. It is an easy read. It is a game that you can set up and run without problem. And there's a lot of wonderful material within this book, once again, to complement other games if you like. But this is one I would recommend running, utilizing its own rule set. And like all things Scott does, it is wildly supported. And definitely check out his itch page for smaller little supplements, 1-page, 2-page adventures, not just supporting this, but the other wonderful things that he does. And moving on, we have storytelling game, The Extraordinary Adventures of Baron Munchausen. This is probably the absolute perfect description of what a storytelling game is to me. A group of people sit around and they regale each other with stories in the vein of how Baron Munchausen tells his. The wilder and grander they are, the more competitive others become as you try to modify and change each other's story for the better or the worse. And it's competitive. It's designed to be a competitive storytelling game where you're trying to outshine the other people that you're playing this with. It's a wonderful tool that can kind of give a little bit of experience to those who aren't used to improvising. And because it's not just competitive, but it's supportive, as you can change their stories for the better or worse. But it is a nice way to kind of hone those minor improv tools that can make role-playing a little bit better. And next to this, we have Liminal, my absolute favorite urban fantasy role-playing game. This is done by Paul Mitchener, as you may know as Dr. Mitch on the Twitters or the Tweedmeister. And this game has inspired me to the point where I've written my own adventures for it. One that takes place in New Orleans, and another one that's up and coming that I'm working on that takes place in Los Angeles as a continuation of the New Orleans adventure. A lot of people enjoyed it, enjoyed my take on it. Not tooting my own horn, but there's something to be said about a game that actually not just inspires you to run it and play it, but to go beyond the supporting adventures they have and create your own. Wildly popular in England, and I hope that it becomes even more popular here in the States. Next to that, we have the supplement book for it, Pax Londinium. And then we start getting into my collection. As we kind of move this over a little bit, we continue on with my expanding collection of old school essentials. What's to be said about this? I kind of feel like if you don't know what old school essentials is, you're under a rock. But essentially it is probably a reorganization and a better breakdown of old school D&D. Necrotic Gnome, and all those involved have done an excellent job of making the old version of Dungeons & Dragons a lot more accessible for people who are more used to, I don't know, easier clarification and better organization of newer games. And as you can see here, here's the advanced fighting supplements, which what it does is it kind of takes bits and pieces of AD&D and molds it into the Old School Essentials rules tome. This is my printing of all of my Wormskin PDFs that I've put into one compendium. That being said, they are working on a setting book for Old School Essentials, Dolmenwood, which takes a lot of what the Wormskin books were based upon and what the kind of the default setting for Old School Essentials is, and is going to be coming out in a Kickstarter. But these Wormskin zines, what they essentially are, that's what the compendium of them is they're going bye-bye. They're not going to be available. So there's a little bit of limited time left. So if you want to grab these, definitely hop on Drive-Thru RPG and purchase the PDFs or get them printed out. And here we continue on with the advanced fantasy genre rules, the secondary books, and what is this in here? Oh, come on. Yeah, he's stuck. Hole in the Oak, one of the first adventures that was produced for Old School Essentials. And then here's the Kickstarter, more adventures that came with the Advanced Fantasy Kickstarter. The Mountain Shaker by Luca Rajek. Hope I pronounced that right. I'm still not sure if I am. Halls of the Blood King by Diogo Nogueira. The Isle of the Plangent Mage by Don Stroud, and the Incandescent Grottos by Gavin Norman, who, is the author of Old School Essentials. And here at the end, this is going to be kind of hard to pull out, but this is Winter's Daughter, another adventure that was written some time ago for Old School Essentials. And as we kind of slide over here, this is essentially all of the old Dragon magazines that my son got from my dad. For Christmas, and also includes some Dragon magazines from one of my followers on Twitter, who was very gracious enough to donate some to these. What they're here for is my son belongs to a D&D group at his school, and they started branching out from 5e. They wanted to know more about the history of D&D. They wanted to kind of expand beyond what WotC was currently providing. And they still are, and this is kind of like a lending library. There's a second shelf of these, and as the kids come over, they will grab a couple of these, they'll borrow them, they'll read through them, they will lend them to some of the other kids in their club, and it's nice to kind of carry on that tradition and pass the torch on to younger gamers, knowing that the moment that they're interested in other things beyond what their initial catalyst is into the hobby, I am more than happy to try to indulge them in that aspect. So, and then here at the tail end, it's just miscellaneous maps. There's the full map of Genitalia, from Glorantha, gigantic. It takes up an entire wall. Don't know when I will ever get those up, but maybe someday. So there you are. That is the first shelf of 4 of the middle section of my collection, and we will be moving on after taking a short break to the second shelf. Thank you, and see you soon.